Welcome to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. Want to welcome you here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. We've got some volleyball rankings for you out of the 4A conference. Currently out of the 4A Grand Canyon region, the Flagstaff Eagles sitting in the conference rankings at number 11, yet number 1 in the region. The Eagles are playing some great volleyball right now. Behind them in the region as well as in the conference, the Coconino Panthers sitting at 2 in the region, but number 13 in the conference rankings. Doesn't matter if they had a COVID pause, those Panthers are playing some very good volleyball right now, and they're looking to catch up to their friends, their crosstown rivals in the Flagstaff Eagles. Behind them is the Prescott Badgers, who are very, very close to the Coconino Panthers in the 4A Grand Canyon region. They sit at number 16 in the conference, and they're rounding out the rest of the conference. We've got number 18, Bradshaw Mountain High School. The Bears playing some good volleyball as well. The Lee Williams Volunteers sit at 28. The Mojave High School Thunderbirds sit at 30, and the Mingus Marauders of Mingus Union High School currently at 36. We've got some great guests lined up for you today. At the other side of this break, we'll get an opportunity to speak with Prescott High School senior badminton player Kaylee Crockett. We'll talk about her time over at Prescott and what future plans are in store for her. Then we'll be joined by Yancey DeVore, the athletic director of Mingus Union High School. He'll give us a good rundown of the fall season and what we can expect from the Marauders in the winter season. And finally, we'll get an opportunity to sit down with AIA Executive Director David Hines to talk about that winter season and what kind of modifications we can expect. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will be joined by Prescott High School senior badminton player Kaylee Crockett. I will say that we interviewed her on Tuesday. They have finished playoffs by then, but this interview was conducted on Tuesday. So we're going to send you that one right after these quick commercial breaks. Don't go anywhere. Off the Bench, we'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. I am joined now by Prescott High School senior badminton player Kaylee Crockett. Kaylee, welcome onto the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Happy to have you. I know I just meshed your first and last name together, which is something I've never done before, so that's a first for me. Right now, the Badgers are rolling 14-0 in their section right now, or overall. This was recorded on Tuesday, so actually this week playoffs will get started for badminton, but for right now, at least on Tuesday, the badminton team was able to secure victory yesterday, which would have been Monday. 14-0 overall, 7-0 in the section. They play in the Division II Northwest, as we mentioned with Coach Yoder. The Badgers do not play in the 4A Grand Canyon region, unlike all of their other sports. The badminton team plays in the Division II Northwest. This is second time in 2 years that the Badgers have been undefeated. What would you attribute to this year's team's success?
Really, we just have really great depth. All of our varsity players are really good. We don't have one or two that are better than the rest. We're all pretty equal, and so that lets us have the wins all the way through instead of just at the top.
Now, you were a junior, or you were, I believe, a sophomore, maybe even a junior at the time in 2018 when the team was undefeated. You were, I guess, technically a JV team, but you had mentioned that you had played with that 2018 team. So let's do a little comparison between then and now. What's the difference between that team in 2018 compared to the team now here in 2020?
They're really similar. I do think that the 2018 team did have a very clear top couple kids. And we really don't have that this year. We've had 3 people in number 1 spot just this season.
So it seems like not necessarily more of a collective effort, but, like you mentioned, there's not really one or two people you can kind of single out to go, well, this person has been doing great and this person's been doing great. And they've been kind of carrying the load. For the most part, it sounds like everybody kind of does a little something very well.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Now, I know in badminton, technically there aren't positions for badminton, but what do you usually play? More of the singles, more of the doubles? What would you be categorized as a badminton player here over at Prescott High School?
I play singles and doubles, but I do lean towards more doubles because we have a better record, and I really like playing with my doubles partner.
Who is your doubles partner?
It's actually Cassadine Naylor, my cousin.
Oh, okay, great. So you got a little family connection there. It must be great playing alongside with your cousin, I would assume.
Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah, somebody you've known for a really long time. That's great. Again, as I mentioned, Prescott High School badminton team currently undefeated, 14-0 overall, 7-0 in section going into playoffs this current week. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was on the JV baseball team, and we went undefeated all season long. And it was kind of something that we thought about throughout the year. It wasn't necessarily, we need to go undefeated. We have to go undefeated. We need to win every single game. It was just kind of like, this is happening, but we're also just trying to execute on the field. Was there any point while you guys were playing this season where you're like, wow, we could really go undefeated this year, be better than the 2018 team, and possibly make it all the way to state? Or was it more kind of like, hey, this is what's going on, let's just be more focused?
We definitely were just trying to stay focused, but like you said, it was kind of in the back of our minds, like, hey, we could do this.
Yeah, it's got to be kind of exciting too. Like I mentioned, this isn't the first time that the badminton team has been undefeated, but it's still kind of exciting to possibly be a part, especially in your final year, being a part of sort of another historic season in this quite dominant program. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
As I mentioned, currently playoffs will be going on as you at home are listening and watching along. When I looked at the records for this team, it seems like the playoffs have been kind of a bit of a tough road to get over for the Prescott Badger badminton team. I mean, I'm a Dodgers fan, so I know what it feels like to go all the way and then unfortunately be on the losing end. But, as I mentioned, this new year, new team, what does the Badger badminton team have to do to get over that hump and get into a state championship game and then also to win the state championship?
I think we just need to play our game. We can't look at any of these teams and say, oh, that's going to be an easy win. We don't have to try. We need to treat all of these games like they're going to be our toughest game this season. And I think we can do it if we do that.
We are again speaking with senior badminton player over at Prescott High School. That is Kailey Crockett. Kaylee, you mentioned playing alongside with your cousin. How has the team been able to stay so bonded throughout the year and keep focused on that goal of winning a state championship?
We work really well together, this team. I'm not sure why. It might be because we've played together for so long. We do have a couple siblings or cousins on the team, which helps. But I think we take our team very seriously and we treat each other like family. And so then that's how we play.
And you can see it on the floor. As I mentioned, 14-0 and 7-0 in regions, very tough, especially when you're not playing against a lot of local talent. You guys are having to travel down to Phoenix to basically handle your entire season. So, is it a little weird? I know you also play soccer, which we will talk about a little bit, obviously a little more in region. You get a chance to play against Bradshaw and you get a chance to play against Mingus and Coconino. But is it kind of strange having all of your competition be really kind of a little more south than it is up here in the northern part of the state?
It's a little bit weird, but I think because I've played other sports before that I've had to travel, it's not as bad for us. What the weirdest part is when the Phoenix teams are like, oh, you guys have to travel for every game? I'm like, you don't?
Do you find that as any kind of advantage that you guys get a chance to travel around a little bit more and get to see more of these teams and play more on the road as opposed to home?
I do think it helps a little bit with our team bonding because 2 hours on a bus there and back every time, you have a lot of personal time with your whole team.
Yeah, that's got to be good. It must be working. So the bus trips are definitely working. How did you get involved with badminton?
I knew one of the players on the 2018 team, and just out of nowhere, she was like, hey, you should come try it. It's a lot of fun. And so I came and I tried it and I loved it. And I actually got my older sister into it. Her senior year, she decided to join me, which was a ton of fun. And now my little sister has joined me now. So we're just very community sport. We invite each other, and that's really how we get all of our players.
That's really interesting because I had an opportunity last week to talk with the senior libero for the Mingus Marauders in Sadie Backus, and she's kind of the opposite. And you see that a lot, the opposite of the older sibling usually getting the younger siblings involved. But this time it's a little bit of a flip with you being on the badminton team and asking your older sister Kendall to come onto the program and play some badminton in her final year. And now it seems like the older sister, you this time, has gotten your little sister into badminton. So kind of an interesting little dynamic there.
Yeah.
But how was it playing alongside? You've got a chance now to play with both sisters, your older sister and your younger sister. I mean, what's it been like getting a chance to go out there, not only with your cousin, but other more close family members?
It's tons of fun. Because sure, your team is there to cheer you on, but it's just a little bit different when it's your family. So you've got family there every time cheering you on. You get to cheer them on. It's just a lot of fun.
How's it been playing under Coach Yoder?
Oh, I love her.
She's great, right?
She believes in us a lot more than we believe in ourselves most of the time. And she'll give it to us straight. If it's a hard team, she'll tell us. She'll say, hey, this is going to be a really hard team. You've got to play your best. And we just sometimes need that push sometimes.
Yeah, and it seems like whatever Coach Yoder has been doing has been definitely working. I got a chance to speak with Coach Bobby Yoder early on this year about the badminton program. At the time, I believe the team was only 9-0, and now they've accomplished that goal of going 14-0. And again, as I mentioned, this was recorded on Tuesday. They are currently in the playoffs right now while you're listening and watching. But yeah, Coach Yoder's the best. She came into the program not really knowing badminton, seemed like she picked it up really well, and whatever she's doing is definitely working because the team is looking really good this year.
Yeah.
You also play soccer over at the high school. Soccer season is right around the corner. Let's talk a little bit about the soccer team coming in this year.
We have a lot of returners, especially on the varsity team. I think it's going to be a great team. I think we can go all the way.
Now, as I mentioned, it's a little weird. The badminton team doesn't play in the 4A Grand Canyon region. They play in the Division II Northwest, whereas the soccer team does get a chance to play in the 4A Grand Canyon region. Do you find it do you find it a little weird that badminton is the only program that you don't see in the 4A Grand Canyon region?
A little bit, but I think it's mostly because there's not enough other teams to have that 4A region.
And then, I mean, unfortunately, though, the one disadvantage of being on the badminton team is you don't get a chance to play against Bradshaw in that very big rivalry of the Badgers and the Bears. Because I know, at least if from most people I've spoke to on both sides, that's usually one of the bigger matchups and bigger rivalries that we see in the 4A Grand Canyon region, along with Coconino and Flagstaff, which is another big one. But does the badminton team have an official rival? Is there kind of a team where you look on the schedule and you go, I can't wait to play against these group of girls this year?
We don't really have an official rival. It really just depends on who's doing good in our section that year. Most of the time, though, Horizon, Barry Goldwater, those are the teams that we're really pumped to play because they're some of the better teams.
Do you think you could see more schools adopting a badminton program up here in Northern Arizona, possibly your neighbors across the street at Prescott Valley over at Bradshaw Mountain?
I sure hope so.
It would be a lot of fun to see to broadcast a badminton Bradshaw versus Prescott High School badminton competition. That'd be a lot of fun. Again, we are speaking with Prescott High School senior badminton player Kaylee Crockett. Kaylee, what about after high school? What plans do you have so far?
I'm going to go to Yavapai. I'm not really sure what I'm going to major in yet, but
okay. Are you going to play any sports over there?
Haven't decided yet.
Do they have a badminton program at Yavapai College?
They do not.
Oh, maybe you can get it started over there.
Maybe.
Maybe indeed. As I mentioned, you guys are currently in playoffs right now, as the show is airing right now, and I mean, best of luck going forward. And how is school? Actually, here's a better question: how's school been going in general? I like I mentioned, I talked with Sadie Backus last week, and it seems like a little bit of a weird year. But how has it been for you?
Definitely a little bit weird, different than my last 3 years, but it's been all right. It hasn't been as bad as maybe some of us were expecting.
I would assume probably no real major change in terms of the badminton season. Obviously, more of the spring sports got canceled last year, so you were able to you kind of find yourself in a good position being able to play all 4 years with no stoppage, whereas in the spring season, of course, baseball and a couple of those sports, softball as well, had to take a little bit of a hiatus. But it must be great getting an opportunity to finish out your final year at Prescott with possibly a state championship on the line.
Yeah, I was really worried that wasn't going to happen, but we got our season and we're dominating. So it's been really nice.
Absolutely dominating. 14-0 overall, 7-0 in section. Out of the Division II Northwest, the Prescott High School badminton team. I just got one more question for you here, Kaylee. How has going through this program built you as a player and as a person?
It's definitely shown me teamwork, because even though badminton is a little bit more of an individual sport, you've got to work together to get the win. And so you've got to, even if you maybe don't like a teammate off the court, on the court, you're a team, you have to work together. And I've just really learned that over the last 4 years.
Now, is there anything that you've learned playing badminton that you can translate to the soccer field?
Definitely, again, more of that teamwork, being a team player, but also you have to do your part. You can't put it on everyone else.
Again, we are speaking with Prescott High School senior badminton player Kaylee Crockett and future Yavapai College Rough Rider, and hopefully the founder of the badminton program over at Yavapai College, but we'll wait and see. Kaylee, definitely keep us updated on what you do over at Yavapai College. Best of luck going forward in your personal life along with your career, if it carries into sports for soccer and or badminton. I know we'll probably get a chance to speak with you a little later while you're playing soccer over at Prescott High School, so we'll see what the Badgers can do as the winter season gets going, but best of luck in the playoffs going forward, and congrats on the historic season.
Awesome. Thank you.
Again, Prescott High School senior badminton player Kaylee Crockett. Kaylee, thank you once again for coming on. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get a conversation going with athletic director for Mingus Union High School, Yancey DeVore. On the other side of this break, Off the Bench, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by Mingus Union High School Athletic Director Yancey DeVore. Yancey, you've been on our program so many times, we might as well welcome you onto this one.
Yeah, hey, it's always a pleasure, man. Anytime we can talk about our kids and our school and our community, man, let's go for it. So
yes, very much so. And we're always happy to have you, Yancey. You're a wealth of knowledge and always a great interview. Fall sports are coming to an end here at Mingus High School. I know the golf team is sending a couple kids to the state qualifiers or the championship. Marauder football, not necessarily going to be playoff contenders this year, but next year's looking real good. Just in general, how successful do you think the fall sports season was this year at Mingus?
Well, it's been very successful. I don't care what the records look like, but for us to pull this thing off with COVID-19 and the challenges that not only we had at the administrative level, the kids, the parents, the coaches, I mean, across the board, it's just been a challenge for everybody. But the cool thing about it is we didn't have to cancel any games on our end. So, man, that's just been a blessing, right? Knock on that wood. We want to finish this thing up. We want our kids actively participating, but we've just been blessed that we've been able to see this thing through up to this point. We've had games cancel on us, but it wasn't because of something within one of our programs. But we just want to finish, and we want a smooth transition to winter sports. So it's been a heck of a challenge, but at this point of the game, I think it's been a big success.
I would agree as well. And as you mentioned, we had seen a couple 4A Grand Canyon region teams unfortunately have to put a brief pause on their season, but they were thankfully all able to recontinue. It just kind of, it's a blessing, like you mentioned, that the Marauders, along with, I believe Prescott didn't have one, Lee Williams, I don't believe, had one, Mojave. There were schools up and down. Flagstaff as well did not have to stop their season. So a good collective effort from every athletic director, every school district, the students, the coaches, to make sure that they keep the season going. As you mentioned, this is for the kids. That's all that matters. And even with the brief pauses, same thing. We know that there was one in Coconino, and they were able to get their sports season right back on board, do the quick quarantine, get it done, and get right back out on the field. So again, I commend a lot of the 4A Grand Canyon region up and down, regardless if you had to stop. It's just, we're all happy that we were able to finish the fall sports season. But you mentioned one of the games getting canceled, and that was a big game. It was the game against Combs, which unfortunately was stopped because of the COVID-19 the small outbreak on their campus. But you guys were able to coordinate a alternative game, and I'm just kind of curious, just the process that was of running around. And you and I were sharing texts of, hey, who are we going to play? When are we going to play? Are we going to play? And your staff and you yourself, along with River Valley High School, were able to coordinate that. So I just want to know what that process was like.
Yeah, so Wednesday at 5:00, I got a message from that AD basically indicating, hey, can't do it. Our varsity's done too, because at that point we knew that the freshmen were done. And then basically we just started scrambling around, and I had some contacts for a couple schools to reach out to, and one of them fell through. And then River Valley reached out as via email, and then we were able to coordinate that in basically almost a 24-hour period for us to bring these two schools together, figure transportation out, get communication out to families. It's not just a game that you just throw together. There's so many moving parts to it. And it was a true coordinated effort on the part of both of our schools to be even pull that off. And it was actually a very excellent game. We wanted to win that game, but that game was it was a battle, and it was a great game to see out on our field. Again, I always want to win just like the other guy, but
of course,
you know what? We gave our kids another opportunity. And that's really what it's all about.
Exactly. And like you mentioned, just the fact that you got to play football is all that really matters. It doesn't matter who you're playing against on the other side. But the Marauders, as you mentioned, did get a new head coach this year, and Coach Doug Provenzano, who we have talked with several times. What about Coach Provenzano attracted you guys to him bringing here to Mingus?
One of the big things was the type of program that he was going to. There was going to be accountability. The character piece was really important for us on our end, from the administrative end. But he's also a guy that's been a head coach before. He's turned programs around before, and he's all in. He's like the CEO of our football program, and he really takes ownership of it. And we saw that in the interview process, and just in meeting him, and just the passion that he had for what we hired him to do as far as teaching and coaching and things of that nature. So it's been a good connection and a good fit for our kids, and the kids like him, and the kids respect him. And that's important to us because we're a school, and we want all of our coaches and our teachers to be respected by the student athletes and the students that come into their programs and their classrooms and all that other stuff. So that's what we look for, and that's what we expect, from our coaches. So it's been a good fit.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the record may not show, but the team, it seems like they're improving every single week. They're making small adjustments. They're able to just get better and better each week, regardless of what the record may say. And it leads with Coach Provenzano, and the decision to bring him in, as you mentioned, just it felt like a good fit. He had what you guys wanted, and he was ready to come into Mingus. And good thing, because along with Coach Provenzano, not necessarily directly, but somehow it also led to an upgrade in the weight room. That weight room is incredible. How did you guys get that started? I know there's a couple other upgrades around the school, but how was the school able to get that weight room to the almost college level it's at now?
Oh, it's at the college level. My daughter's boyfriend was up there, and he's a college athlete at U of A, and he said, "Hey, this looks like our weight room." Not the size of it, but just the equipment and the stuff that we had in there. And if you go up there, it has that feel to it. And I think that's good for our kids, not just our football program, but every kid that walks into the doors of that weight room is going to benefit from that program. But I will say this, without mentioning names, we had a very generous donation that attributed to that weight room, and just even some of the equipment for football and stuff like that. And we are very, very thankful and blessed by that donation, because it is a game changer for our kids, not just the football program, but for the kids at Mingus to have something that nice and that special to walk into whatever hour you have weights, and to go into an environment like that with a coach that knows what he's talking about in the weight room. It's really, really nice to have. So our whole school benefits from that.
Exactly. As you just said, it's not just the football team that gets to utilize the weight room. Obviously, there is a weight program over at Mingus, and every time I go in there, I want to pick up some weights and do some sets and reps. But unfortunately, whenever I'm in there, I have to work, so I can't necessarily do that. But, we're also seeing some improvements at the cave. The Hall of Fame has been upgraded. It looks absolutely beautiful. I know it's not 100% done yet. But are there any other let's talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame upgrade. And then are there any other possible upgrades in the works, or maybe just some things you would like to accomplish?
Yeah, one of the things and actually I took this to the board last month, was we're going to do a Marauders Hall of Fame in the east hallway of our 100 building. So as you enter our gymnasium now, it's kind of an awkward entrance. But what we want to do, and I'm going to form a committee, and I have some committed coaches and alumni from Mingus and staff members that want to be part of that committee. And we're going to relocate that trophy hall. And we have a really old scoreboard that's down in our storage that we want to kind of utilize and put a ticket counter and just a more natural entryway out. If you ever exited our gymnasium in that east hallway down to the football facility, down into the stadium down there, there's a courtyard right there, a really nice courtyard. But we want to enhance that as part of our entry into our gymnasium as well. And that will benefit our volleyball, our basketball programs, and our weight or our wrestling programs that we have on campus, as far as competitions go and stuff like that. So that's our goal. But yeah, we want to do stuff like that. And then we're also evaluating our fields right now, and it gets really expensive when you start doing upgrades like that. And I know our football field and our baseball and softball fields, we need to really look at those. We do need to get a retaining wall on our JV girls softball field. So there's some pretty big projects that we need to look at, but they're big ticket items. And so tomorrow, our grounds crew and I are meeting with some team of people that are going to look at our track and our fields, grass and artificial, just to get an evaluation of them and see where they're at and see what we can do to try to enhance them or upgrade them, and just make a better playing environment for our kids.
Well, as you mentioned, it's all about the kids, and I know that it would be. I'm a big fan of the Cave. It's my second season calling broadcast over at Mingus High School, and I love seeing the Cave. I can't imagine how you can make it even better, but I look forward to the possible upgrade with that. Same thing with baseball and softball, as you mentioned, just to give the kids a better opportunity and to give them the best playing conditions that you can. Speaking of, I guess, kind of more backtracking back to the new coach aspect, is Hunter Tibbs added on to the Mingus Union girls volleyball team as the varsity head coach, and I believe he actually also coaches JV and freshmen. What was the decision to just upgrade Coach Tibbs from just JV coach to varsity coach this season, as opposed to going towards with somebody who was not a part of the school the year before?
Yeah, well, we had the opening there, and Hunter applied, and Hunter's the right fit. Without a doubt. He brings a lot of energy. The kids respect him, and And, it's one of those things when you bring a new coach into a program, it's going to take a few years to build into that program, to get a program set up the way that not only Coach Provenzano, but Coach Hunter Tibbs, and now our Coach Nagel with our girls, and Coach Glick for the boys soccer, girls and boys soccer programs respectively. So, you just don't step into a gold mine all of a sudden in a lot of cases. And so once you get that program the way you want it, the way our coaches want that program, and what I see is we got some committed coaches that are committed to absolutely that. And that's what Hunter's doing right now. He's trying to surround himself with some assistant coaches and get the program up to snuff the way he wants it. So yeah, his challenges this year were I'm gonna put into my freshman program and JV program and varsity program, and he's kind of taken that on. Man, I would not recommend that for a coach. I want your wife to support you coaching again next year. But he has really taken ownership of that program. I'm really excited with where he's going to take that. And I think he's a good fit.
I couldn't agree more. Again, very much like the same similar situation with Coach Provenzano, which is, while the record may show a disappointing season, when you watch the teams on the field or on the floor in the case of volleyball, it just seems like they just get better and better every year. And I know the volleyball team is going to be returning a lot of starters from last year into this year, only losing 3 seniors at the end of the 2020 season. So we're excited to see what happens with Coach Tibbs. We got a chance to talk with him earlier this year about the girls varsity program. Winter season coming up very, very soon. I know we're all itching and scratching to get fall sports going, and then it finally goes. And just like anything good, it's almost done, making its way out. But how's the winter season looking like at Mingus right now, Yancey?
So we're starting that transition phase. So officially we start next week, but our boys soccer's been going out there. Girls going to get rolling this week on the upper fields, and our boys and girls basketball, they've been doing some preseason stuff, and Clint's starting to get into the preseason mode. A little more challenging with the wrestling side of things, with that close contact and the higher risk and stuff like that. But I'm excited for those seasons to get going. Again, the challenges are still there as far as how we can mitigate stuff. So we're going to look at probably not doing scrimmages and trying to just focus on salvaging the schedules that we have for the season and stuff like that. And we're not going to be adding a bunch of extra stuff. So on any given year, we would normally do stuff like that. But with COVID and with the challenges that schools are facing, we want to make sure we can preserve what we can so our kids can keep playing. So any risks that we can mitigate from here to game number 1 for every one of our programs, or match number 1, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and we will get an opportunity literally right after this interview to sit down and speak with AIA Executive Director David Hines about the wrestling season and some of the changes we might see for the winter season. So definitely stick around for that after this one. But Yancey's speaking more to the winter season. You had mentioned Coach Nabel at the when you're listing off the new coaches for the winter season. He takes over the girls soccer program. Can we talk a little bit about the decision to keep him on staff?
Oh yeah, well it was excellent. I mean, you go into these interviews, and he's got a wealth of knowledge, and he's very he's got a very good plan and direction that he wants to take that team in. And the thing that's important to us, will it be done with character and integrity, and will we have that competitive spirit? And we see that, and he's the right fit for our program. So we're really excited. Same with Coach Glick on the boys end as well. So we're just really excited to have those coaches in place and to get those programs going in that direction, and have kids out there, man. When I'm driving home at night and I drive by that upper field up there, and there's 30 soccer boys out there just mixing it up. It's exciting to see that those opportunities are still there for those kids, but we want to try to preserve that. And we got to go through these guidelines to make sure we do that, but we're going to do everything we can to keep kids active and involved.
And as I said, it goes up and down the board outside of just Mingus Union High School, with a lot of the athletic directors and the staff and the coaches and the players and the students and the districts almost collaborating together to go, look, we need to get this season going. We need to protect these kids. We need to make sure that we've got precautions in place. We need to make sure to hit the mask mandate. You got to wear your mask. It's the due diligence on the side of people like yourself, Yancey, that make sure that this sports season continues. And we're really happy, of course, to be covering sports, obviously, but even more so, as you mentioned, just to get the kids out there playing. Yeah. And you know what? You mentioned our region, the Grand Canyon region athletic directors and our other teams and what we're able to do and what we're able to accomplish this semester, this fall semester and fall sports in particular. They've been very diligent about doing what they have to do to keep kids involved too. And we have a lot of contact with each other. And so we're in a really good region. We're in a very competitive region. And it's in my opinion, one of the better regions out there. So I got one more question before we take off, Yancey. Anything going on around campus? It's good. We have kids back on campus again, and that's really nice to see. And it feels normal somewhat with the mask on, of course. But it is nice to see that, teachers are teaching again and kids are out hanging out with friends and having lunch again. And they're not going to our games or anything like that, but they do have a sense of somewhat normalcy and connection, and the school is such a big part of a community, and it is a real game changer for especially a smaller community like our size. For kids to be able to reconnect is probably the best thing that we can do for this community right now. So I do have to give a shout out. We have our 2 golfers down at state. Our 2 female golfers are down there, and they teed off this morning and yesterday. And then Coach Monsibais has taken a group of our cross-country runners down Thursday for a region, our sectionals. And we have 5 girls and 1 boy swimmer that qualified for the state championship meet. So those are some of the cool things to kind of tie up the fall sports. Very exciting things going on around Mingus Union High School, not only on the field and off it, but Yancey, we always are very happy to speak with you. The athletic director for Mingus Union High School, Yancey DeVore, thank you very much for coming on. All right. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate that. No problem. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be joined by the AIA Executive Director, David Hines. On the other side of this break, off the bench. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by a man who we spoke to not too long ago at the beginning of the fall season, the Executive Director for the AIA, Mr. David Hines. Mr. Hines, welcome back onto the program.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Well, we're happy to have you. As we all know, the fall season, even with COVID-19 still making its way throughout the state successfully, at least in my opinion, was able to get most of the season completed, moving into playoffs now, which is great. So that means that we can go from the fall to the winter and then hopefully from winter to spring. But I wanted to ask you, Mr. Hines, the fall season, like I mentioned, is coming to an end. How successful did you think the fall season was this year?
Well, considering all the issues that we had to start with, we feel like we've had a very successful fall season. Little different even when we started late. We had to make some adjustments, and there were some parts of our state that got later starts than other people. But Right now, 211 schools are playing football across the state. So I think that was a very positive piece to that. We did have to make some adjustments for Phoenix Union, for the Pima County, Tucson area schools, because with them starting a little later, they're going to play within their area, which is fine. At least they're playing. So that was the goal. The goal was really to have get kids the opportunity to participate in the fall, and the majority of them have.
And it seems like even when there was a short pause for COVID-19, we know that it happened up here a few times and down in the Phoenix area as well, where, somebody had gotten COVID or later on somebody tested positive for COVID-19 and they had to quarantine. But it seemed like through the collaboration of the AIA, along with the school districts and the athletic directors and the teachers and the coaches and whatnot, it seemed like when there was a stoppage in play, it picked up right after when it was supposed to with no issues. And Coconino High School, for example, had a COVID-19 outbreak. They were able to shut down, get their quarantine done, and they got to continue their sports.
No, you're right on. I think our schools, in cooperation with their districts and county health departments, have done a really good job of contact tracing. When there has been a positive case, they have followed protocol and done what they're supposed to do. Their opponents have picked up contests, which has been very positive, some at the very last minute, but then they've come back and been able to play. We still have played 93% of our football games that were scheduled. And in volleyball, we played 98% of the games scheduled. So even though there are going to be some cases that come up and some people are going to have to shut down, we have been able to follow those protocols, yet get games in.
Well, I'll tell you what, 93% is a lot better than 0%, which is what we were possibly looking at the beginning of the pandemic, but a passing grade nonetheless. And we're all happy that football season was able to get kicked off, along with, for certain areas of the state, soccer was able to get off the ground. Volleyball has been moving quite well. Badminton, most of the fall sports, if not all of them, were able to seamlessly continue the rest of their season with a few modifications in place. And more specifically, regarding those modifications, swim. There was big questions of how are we going to be able to conduct the swim season, not as protected with clothing or maybe as distance like when you have volleyball or when you're wearing a uniform with your equipment on for football and you can kind of wear a mask while you're playing. But swim was able to utilize what we're utilizing, which is the virtual aspect, which was, hey, you may not be competing physically against somebody, but your time still matters. Because, like I mentioned, we're using the virtual aspect of it. So speaking on that, were there any other sports that were able to utilize the virtual aspect? And is that something we could see utilized in the future?
Swimming was ideal because everybody swims in a 25-yard pool, so it's all consistent. What makes it a little more of a challenge in cross country is every course is a little different, so it's tough to compare times. But we have had modifications that they spread more people out. They started some of the meets, which then spread the kids out, which allowed them to move forward with their meets. We had some swim meets this last weekend that were qualifiers for this week's coming state swimming. Which really was the first time we brought a group of people really together, but they had some protocols put in place that they followed very, very well. The kids can wear their masks at all time up until the time they swim their warm-up laps. They can put their mask back on. They can take it off, set it in a container while they swim their competition. They can pick up their mask, go cool down, and then they can get their mask back on and do things. And kids have done a great job with that. And that's kind of the process that they'll follow this week at the state meet. We only can get so many kids in the actual venue itself at a particular time. So we have a rotation that Aaron Coy has done a terrific job setting up. We have those kind of things. People have followed those. But we have learned that we can make adjustments and still get by.
Very much so. So it seems like, hopefully there will never be another pandemic like this whenever this one is over. But it's good to know that this is kind of like a very weird trial run in the event that we have to have some sort of modified season or some sort of protocols in place where, yeah, we can still have a sports season if there's something going on. As I mentioned, the swim meets being able to utilize the virtual aspect of it to keep track of times, of course, like you mentioned, not as easy to do if for other sports. I know if I'm a horrible golfer, so if I'm competing for my qualifiers and golfers, I might take a couple strokes off my swing because, yeah, you didn't see it. It's no big deal. But, like I mentioned, just kind of speaking more to the virtual aspect, along with that, are there any protocols that were put in place or any modifications that were put in place for this season that you could see moving forward being adapted into actual policy?
Mainly, honestly, most of the modifications we had were separating kids, keeping them apart. I think you did hit a great point is we had no history. And people really did think outside the box and be creative when they did compete and doing some of those things, which then has given us now a background that if we ever had to do this again, now we have something to go back and rely on and say, well, here's the things that worked. Here's the things that probably we need to get better. But we all kind of understand that it's just been a big challenge this year in that we had no protocol or anything to fall back on. This is all made up on the fly. But as I said, I think everybody's done a great job thinking outside the box, being creative. We've had to limit fans. We've had to, limit the number of people that can then be at a contest, the number of people that are on sidelines. So there are some things that, have been very positive on how they've done things. It's kind of made things easier on the field or on the court. But also it's very frustrating if you're a parent wanting to watch your kids play. Those are the challenges that we hope we don't have to go through again.
Of course. I know that a lot of parents here in the 4A Grand Canyon region were obviously, just like everybody was around the state, around the entire world, not being able to get to go see their kids or not be able to bring the usual tribe of family members or friends that they would usually bring along for any kind of sporting event. But we know that with time and hopefully as our COVID numbers will hopefully start to turn around and start to limit around the time of our next sports season, we'll get more fans out in the stands. And even if it's at just a smaller capacity, maybe we go from 25 to 50 or maybe even 25 to 45, whatever it may be. Like I mentioned, the fast thinking on the side of the AIA to start putting out the modifications and go, okay, how quickly can we get these modifications done and get this season going so that these kids can have a senior year? They don't have to get their senior years taken away like we saw last spring when the pandemic started, which is, I keep saying it's absolutely insane how this pandemic started earlier this year, and it still feels like it's been 5 or 6 years since it got kicked off. But, like I mentioned, the AIA, along with the schools, just making sure that we get something going and these kids can continue their season. And as I mentioned, we were talking with AIA Executive Director David Hines. We moved from the fall season. We're going into playoffs right now. Any changes to the postseason schedule going into this year?
Well, there were some modifications. So we're really taking 8 teams instead of 16 into the playoffs for football because we wanted to get an extra week of playing in. And football is a challenge because we only play once a week. So that was a thing that all the conferences did agree with. So that's a modification this week. And moving forward, even in football, 2A, 3A, and 4A teams decided to play 7 games and have a play-in game where more kids can be involved in a type of a playoff scenario, which is great. They still get down to their 8 teams that would advance to the state tournament. In volleyball, they are doing the same thing with some play-in games. They will play with a 16-team format. So that was, again, is a little bit of a modification. But other than that, everything else is pretty much in play.
Is there going to be a different approach to the postseason that there was in the regular season? Because as we know, if there was a COVID outbreak during the regular season, you had time to make up those games. But in the playoffs, you got to kind of get things finished. You have to finish the fall season. You can't extend it another week because it starts bleeding into the winter season. So is there a different approach to the postseason? And more specifically to my question, if you have, and again, hopefully, we won't have that, but if you do get a COVID outbreak during the postseason, what happens?
No, that's a very good question. And I'm going to go back to Iowa this summer ran during the pandemic their baseball and softball state tournament. So they have a summer tournament. They did have some teams that when it got into the playoffs had to sit there 14 days and
right.
They could not complete the playoffs. They had to pull out of the playoffs. So that would happen in our case too. If someone had to quarantine kids, then they would miss those opportunities. We feel bad for that, but we're going to protect everybody else that's involved. So being proactive about that, then here's the thing. Everyone wear your mask. Don't go out in groups. Don't disregard the protocols we have so that you can protect you and your teammates as we finish the season. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, and the biggest word from the coaches is, hey, we do a really good job when we're in our setting, but we've got to keep that circle tight and don't go out to put us in jeopardy. So that is a challenge, and that is something that's just a fact of life. If we have a case and we're in the playoffs and a team would have to pull out, then unfortunately they would have to pull out. So.
Yeah, and of course that makes sense. As you mentioned, there's a time limit to this. You can't extend the playoffs. You can't continue the playoffs. It makes complete sense. But moving away from the fall season, we go into the winter season. We're getting very close to basketball and wrestling and all of those sports kicking off very soon here. I believe practice starts this week or the following week. But I'm a huge basketball fan, so I'm excited that basketball's finally kicking off. The winter season. Are we going to have a full winter season? Are we going to have what we had for football, a shortened season? Just in general, what will the winter season look like?
So the goal is that we start practice on Monday. We do have every Thursday, we do track the COVID metric, the numbers. And so we have those by county. And so when we post those this Thursday, those will be the numbers that determine where we're at to start with. So part of that information is for basketball and soccer, we have to be under 100 per 100,000. In our cases, we have to be below 10% in positivity, below 10% in hospitalizations. And so, those are our recommendations. Some school districts may be a little better off than their county numbers. Right. You can use those numbers if that's the case. However, 4 weeks after that, if you have not met those numbers, then we would not assign officials to contests. So you are at some point going to have to meet those numbers. Basketball and soccer, about 2/3 of our counties are hanging on right now to be able to start on Monday. 1/3 of them are high and don't meet the metric at this point. On this week, we'll see where everybody's at. Wrestling is the biggest concern. Right. Right now, 14 of the 15 counties do not meet the metric to begin wrestling, with Pima County being the one that has met the metrics in Tucson, which ironically, they were the ones to start the slowest with some of their fall sports. So we'll monitor the numbers. We will communicate that to our schools and keep up with that as we go each week.
Well, we had a successful fall season, and we're hoping to continue that into the fall playoffs, and then moving into the winter season, and then the winter playoffs, and then spring season. And just before you know it, Mr. Hines, will be all over with the sports season in this chaotic 2020 year, the COVID-19 year of 2020. But Mr. Hines, I want to thank you very much for coming on. The AIA Executive Director, Mr. David Hines, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Great questions, and I hope we gave the audience some things to think about.
Well, we appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much for coming on the program. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you right here on Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, right here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm Philip Catalfamo. Want to welcome you back here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. We can officially crown the Flagstaff Eagles as the girls volleyball champion in the 4A Grand Canyon region, finishing with their region record of 10-2, 11-3 overall. Congratulations to the Flagstaff Eagles and best of luck moving forward in the playoffs. Behind them, the Coconino Panthers, Prescott finishing in third. Bradshaw Mountain, Lee Williams, Mojave, and Mingus round out the rest of the standings in the 4A Grand Canyon region. So congratulations to the Flagstaff Eagles and best of luck in the playoffs for the Eagles. We take a look at the week ahead. It'll be the final week of football. These are the final regularly scheduled games. Of course, some schools can schedule in that eighth game. They left that eighth week open. But for right now, these are the final games on the schedule for now. And it looks like this. Cactus will travel to take on Bradshaw Mountain. Flagstaff and Coconino, always a big rivalry. That will be taking place as well. The Mingus Marauders will take on the Prescott Badgers. Lee Williams will travel to Mojave. And of course, as I mentioned, we'll have playoffs in badminton. Best of luck to Kaylee Crockett and the Prescott Badgers badminton team going forward in the playoffs this week. They're currently competing for a state title. Best of luck to them going forward as well. Cross country getting wrapped up. Swim and dive getting wrapped up. Volleyball will get wrapped up. We've got a lot of fall sports coming to the end, but that means that winter season is right around the corner, and we cannot wait to get started with that and then hopefully move into the spring and have a very successful 2020 year. Congratulations to the Flagstaff Eagles. Best of luck to everybody in the 4A Grand Canyon region, as well as the Prescott Badgers badminton team going forward into the playoffs. And with that, I want to thank you very much for watching and listening. I want to thank my guests for coming on today. And we're going to have more sports for you coming up. We've got the winter season right around the corner, and we can't wait to talk about it right here on Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. We'll see you next week. More sports on the way.